my gorgeous plant people. Welcome back to Reading Mindfully. My name is Ayana, and today we are doing a care video on the Philodendron Fibrosum. So if you're interested in watching this video, then stay tuned. Hey guys, like I said, so today I am giving you a little bit of a care guide for the Philodendron Fibrosum, and I just got a couple comments from people saying that they needed help with their Philodendron Fibrosum. And so if you watch my videos, I have had a long journey with the Philodendron Fibrosum. We have gone back a ways. I think I first got this plant back in 2020, and it was just struggling. I was rehabbing this plant for the longest time. I think it took me about a year to rehab this plant and get an understanding of what it likes. But I really enjoy how this plant looks. And I did just recently stake it up here because the Philodendron Fibrosum is a climbing variety of philodendron. It is a part of the Araceae family, and you can find them in like Colombia and Ecuador. This plant is mostly in like a rainforest, and it does enjoy a lot of moisture. So that is what I found to be true for the Philodendron Fibrosum. As far as lighting, I found that when this philodendron is in a younger state, a more juvenile state, it does like a little bit of lower light. But now that it is maturing and the leaves are getting a lot bigger, it can take more of a brighter light situation. It doesn't like a lot of light. You have to be careful for these leaves. They are a little bit textured, as well as they're kind of velvety, satiny. So when you have leaves that are more velvet, you have to be careful with the lighting because they can easily burn. So before, when I had this growing in my windowsill, I had it in like a northeast facing window. I could also recommend the east facing window. Right now it's under my Soltech Solutions light, and it also seems to be enjoying it with that as well. As far as watering, that is where I struggle with this plant the most. I found that with this plant, it enjoys being on the more moist side. So when I go to water this plant, I usually try to water it when it is at a 0. I usually try to water this plant when it is at a 2 or a 3. And I noticed that if I wait too long, this plant will get droopy or wilted. And if I wait really a long time, the new growths here that you see that are nice and pink, they will turn crispy and brown, and then the new growth will pretty much die, and you will have to wait to the new point of growth. And so that used to happen to me a lot when this plant was a lot smaller, because like I said, I didn't have the care. But you can see here, this was one of the growth points that I had, and I waited too long to water the plant, and it just shriveled up. So that led me to leave after having that happen to me a couple times, that this plant likes to be on the moisture side. Another thing that leads me to believe that this plant likes to be moist and likes a little bit more humidity is the furry petioles. As you can see, the petioles are extremely furry. You can see that they're really green. This is what happens when the plant goes into more of a maturity phase. You can see that when they start out, they are very pink, a little bit of a salmon color or coral color, and then they turn to this green. But the furry petioles also lead me to believe that this plant loves moisture. The fur does help the plant to attract moisture that's in the air. So this plant does also appreciate a little bit more moisture and humidity. It would appreciate humidity of at least 50%, and really 60 and 70% would be really good for this plant, and it'll grow really well for you. Another thing that this plant likes is temperature. It likes to be about 65 to about 75% or 75 degrees, and then this plant will grow really well. as far as propagation, this plant has been one of the easiest plants to propagate. The only thing you have to do is cut below the node, as you can see here. Just a cut below the node where you see the roots growing. You can either water propagate, which is what I do mostly, or some people will propagate in sphagnum moss. But I found that this plant was really easy to propagate. That's actually how I rehabbed it. I had cut off all the old roots and I just cut it where the juncture was, and I just water propagated it, and it grew into this over time. Something that you want to make sure you do is get this plant into well-draining soil mix. I have mine just in soil and perlite, and I have a good amount of perlite just so I can make sure that this plant is getting a well-drained soil. Like I said, it does like to be on the more moist side, but it doesn't like to be soggy. It doesn't like to have stagnant water in the saucer or in the pot. If that happens, the roots will rot, and you will either kill your plant or you'll have to start it over. So you want to be careful that you're not overwatering the plant. And then as far as any pests or anything like that, the only thing that I've seen with this plant is just spider mites, and I noticed that spider mites are more common on this plant when it lacks moisture, when I haven't watered it correctly. So I really try to pay attention to the amount of moisture that I'm giving this plant to make sure that we're not having any pest issues. As far as any other issues, I make sure that this plant doesn't have any water sitting on the leaves, just because these kind of leaves do have more susceptibility to fungus and bacteria. So if you're misting this plant or you're getting the leaves wet, make sure you have some air circulation so that way the water is drying and it's just not sitting on the leaves. And then some cool things to mention is, again, just like the petioles on this plant. Like I said, they do change colors as the plant matures. The same thing happens to the back of the leaves. When the plant first comes out, they're more pink like the petioles, and then over time as they mature, they do turn into this dark green, which I just find is very cool. So this is one of the most interesting and unique plants. And then once you get the care down, these are one of the easier philodendrons to take care of, in my opinion. I find that most people just have to find a way to rehab them, because most people, if they're not purchased in the US, they are purchased through import companies, most like Ecogenera, and sometimes when you get them from places like that, you do have to wait for them to rehab, because these plants are a little bit harder to rehab, I find. And I'm not sure if it's because of all the furry petioles and things like that, but I find like the furrier philodendrons are a little bit harder to rehab. But once you get their care down, they're so much easier afterwards, and you'll really, really enjoy having them in your collection. Like I said, this plant is a climber, so that's why I have it up on this stake here. And then I'm hoping that once the plant really climbs up the stake, it will develop larger leaves and thicker petioles, so that way it can also support the plant. If the leaves on the lower portion of the plant are not getting a good amount of light, they will turn yellow and die off. I've had one or two leaves at the bottom die off. So if you're trying to maintain your plant, then make sure that the bottom of the leaves are getting light as well. But yeah, so this is my Philodendron Fibrosum. This is a really great plant to have. This plant just made me want to get the Philodendron serpens, as well as the Philodendron swamicale, which actually those plants are very similar. They only have a slight couple of differences, but yeah, I really love this plant. Like I said, it is one of the easier philodendrons in my opinion, and is just very beautiful. The velvety satiny leaves are amazing. They also do have the heart-shaped leaves, and it just has a slight texture to it as well. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you have a Philodendron serpens, whether you're rehabbing it or if it's in just the growing phase, let me know. And as always, I will thank you guys so much for watching my videos, liking and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.